Hey everyone, Mrs. Dillon here again to present a science lesson on simple machines for you today. Simple machines are basic tools that we use in our everyday life to help make our work easier. These machines are all around you, and you probably don't even know it. Simple machines can also be put together to form complex machines. Today, we're going to focus on the 6 types of simple machines: the inclined plane, the wedge, pulley, screw, lever, and a wheel and axle. Let's get started.
It looks like the lid is stuck. You need something to help you. A simple machine is a tool that makes work easier. Machines can have moving parts, but a simple machine has very few moving parts, or none at all. All machines use force to do work. Good question. What is a force? Well, a pull is a force, and a push is a force too. You use force to throw a ball. You also use force to catch a ball and stop it. Simple machines use and change force in different ways. What is a ramp? A ramp is a simple machine with a slanted surface. It can help you move things from lower to higher places. You use a lot of force to lift up a heavy load, but you can use less force to push it up a ramp. Ramps can be different lengths. Some can be steeper than others. It's harder to push things up a steeper ramp. What is a lever? A seesaw uses a lever, which is another type of simple machine. One kind of lever has a bar that rests on a point. The point is called a fulcrum, and that's where the lever turns. You can put a load on one end and use force on the other end to lift up the load. Levers can help you lift things more easily. A car jack is a lever, and a bottle opener is a lever too. A pair of scissors has 2 levers that work together. A hand truck works as a lever, and it has a wheel and axle. What is a wheel and axle? A wheel turns around a center rod, called the axle. The wheel and axle is actually a lever that turns. Well, imagine a lever. The bar moves around and around the fulcrum. Wheels make work easier because they roll. They make things easier to push or pull. You can find wheels and axles in tons of places. What is a pulley? A pulley is another type of lever. You can use it to change direction of a force. Some pulleys use a rope and a wheel. You can pull down on the rope to lift the load up. You can find pulleys on blinds, flagpoles, and on clotheslines. When you add more pulleys, you can use less force to lift up a load. Some machines like cranes use many pulleys in other simple machines. A compound machine is a machine made up of different simple machines. I think you need a lever to open that can of paint, Moby.
All right, let's investigate simple machines and how they make our work easier. a little bit more closely. When we're learning about machines, we might ask, what is a machine? A machine is any device that makes work easier. A machine changes the power, speed, or direction of movement. Many machines are made up of different simple machines that work together. A mechanism is a device that's made up of two or more simple machines. You might also hear these called compound machines. A force is a push or pull of one object that causes it to change direction, move, or stop. Friction is the rubbing force of one object against another. Friction causes objects to slow down. A load is an object which acts as a weight. It's something to be carried. Work is done only when a force or an effort moves a load over a distance. There are 6 types of simple machines: an inclined plane, a wedge, pulley, screw, lever, wheel and axle. Simple machines help do work with less force. A lever is a rod that's balanced on a fixed point that can help lift a heavy object. A pulley uses wheels and a rope to raise, lower, or move a load. An inclined plane, also known as a ramp, is a slope that makes it easier to lift something. A screw is an inclined plane wrapped in a spiral. Wheel and axles are used to carry loads around easily for long distances with less effort. A wedge is made of 2 inclined planes, and it's used to push objects apart. An inclined plane is a slope. One end is raised higher than the other. Its flat surface allows an object to be moved up or down with less effort than lifting. A slide, a ladder, and a staircase are different examples of inclined planes. Other words you might hear for inclined plane would be a ramp, a slope, a slant, a gradient, maybe a rise. In the world around you, you might see these types of inclined planes: an escalator, the staircase, the slide, a ramp covering stairs, a ladder, and ramps that help load something. A lever is a bar that raises or moves a weight. Force is applied to one part and a load is lifted on another part. It has a balance point that we call a fulcrum. The hammer, a seesaw, a balance scale, and a crowbar are all examples of levers. Other names for levers or other words you might hear for levers are crowbars, tools, bars, prizes, something that opens or forces. Some everyday examples of levers can be found in nail clippers, a water pump, a water spigot, the handle on a paper cutter, a hammer, a crowbar, or a seesaw. Another type of simple machine is a pulley. A pulley has a wheel and a rope that goes around the wheel. Pulling on the rope moves a load. A pulley makes it easier to move or lift a load. Some examples of pulleys are the cords, the strings on blinds or shades, the pulley at the top of a crane, the pulley that we use to lift a flag, raise and lower a flag on a flagpole, or the pulley that we use to help raise or lower the sail on a sailboat. Other words for pulleys, you might hear a block, you might hear a winch, a lift, a crane. Some other real world examples where you might see a pulley again on your window blinds or shades, perhaps on a weightlifting machine, on tow trucks, on cranes. All those are used for lifting something up. The mast on the sailboat, the sail, and then the last picture shows a clothesline pulley. A screw is a type of simple machine that is a rod with an inclined plane wrapped around it. It looks like a rod with a spiral around it. The spiral is called the thread. Screws hold things together and raise and lower objects. Some types of screws you might see would be a bottle opener, a corkscrew opener, a light bulb, a screw, or a drill. What are some other words that you might hear when someone's talking about screws? They might be referred to as bolts, fasteners, nails, pins, tacks, spike, rivet, brad. Here we have some other pictures of different types of gadgets that have this screw as a simple machine. You have a clamp, have the corkscrew, light bulb, different drill bit, two different types of drill bits, an old-fashioned one, antique, and a modern one. The simple machine known as a wedge is when two inclined planes join together. A wedge has a thin edge and a thick end. It's important to remember that wedges cut or separate objects. So some different wedges that we might know of are forks, an axe. Your tooth acts as a wedge. It cuts and separates your food, or a knife. Other words for wedges that you might hear. You might hear a chunk, a block, chalk, a jam. Wedges can be seen in shovels, axes, knives, forks, a needle, or a doorstop, a door jamb. Our last type of simple machine is a wheel and axle. A wheel is a round, flat object. An axle is a rod attached to the center of a wheel. A wheel and axle helps us lift and move heavy loads. You might see this simple machine in a rolling pin, a bicycle, car, or a wagon. What are some other names for wheel or axle? A wheel you might hear as a disc, a hoop, a ring, or circle. And other words for axles might be pin, pivot, pole, rod, or shaft. You see wheel and axles a lot around you. We already said a bicycle, a car, a rolling pin, and a wagon. But did you also know that a doorknob has a wheel and axle simple machine, or a pizza cutter? In mechanisms or compound machines, you'll be able to identify lots of different simple machines. In this bicycle, there are lots of simple machines. There's a wheel and axle, levers as the handlebars, screws, and pulleys. Let's do some practice with our new understanding and knowledge about simple machines. Number 1, a screw. Is a screw an inclined plane wrapped around a cylinder? Is it used to hold things together? Does it have threads? Or is it all of the above? A screw has all of the above features. A wheel with a groove in it and a rope running through it is called what? A, screw, B, inclined plane, C, wedge, or D, pulley. The correct answer there is D, pulley. The next one asks, to move a heavy load into a moving van, you would need to use which of the following tools? A pulley, B, an inclined plane, C, a dolly, or D, both B and C. A dolly is what we call a hand truck, but it is the thing that has wheels on it and helps you put something on it and wheel it from place to place. We call them hand trucks. So yeah, to move a heavy load into a moving van, you would need a dolly. So you would need the wheels and the cart, the stand-up cart, and then you would need an inclined plane or a ramp to push the dolly up into the van. What is a lever? Is a lever stairs, an elevator, a door stopper, or none of the above? Are any of these examples of a lever? Nope, none of these are an example of a lever. Remember, a lever is a rod that has a balancing point. It has a fulcrum in the middle, and usually it's used to lift a heavy load on one side using the fulcrum as the balance point. A tow truck uses which simple machine to raise a car in order to tow it to the garage, to a garage? Does that tow truck use a lever, a wedge, a pulley, or an inclined plane? This one you probably know. That tow truck is going to use a pulley. It's going to use a round wheel with a rope and pull the car up. A rooftop is an example of which simple machine? Is a rooftop a simple machine? I don't think so. D, none of the above. A rooftop is not a simple machine. A pizza cutter is an example of which three simple machines? A lever, pulley, and an inclined plane. A wedge, wheel and axle, and a lever. A screw, a pulley, and a lever. Or D, none of the above. You remember, we already said, we gave an example of the pizza cutter for the wheel and axle. So a pizza cutter is a wedge, a wheel and axle combination, and a lever. A clothesline is an example of which simple machine? You might remember the picture of the clothesline that uses a pulley. Brings the clothes to you and takes them away. A person in a wheelchair would need to use which type of simple machine in order to get into their house? A person in a wheelchair would need to use an inclined plane or a ramp to get into their house. They would usually probably put it over top of their stairs. It's also how you would move something up and down stairs that was too heavy. It would be easier to use a ramp. To dig a hole in your garden, would you use a wheel and axle, a wheelbarrow, a pulley, or a wedge? So to dig a hole, you're going to use a wedge. You're going to use a shovel. I hope you had fun learning about simple machines today. Remember to keep your eye out for all the different types of simple machines that you can find around you. Look for levers, look for ramps or inclined planes. Look for lots of examples of wheel and axles. They're everywhere. Try and find a pulley. Definitely look for screws. They're everywhere too. And wedges. They are often hiding. Thanks for joining me for today's science lesson on simple machines. I hope you had fun while learning some new and interesting facts. Now that you know all about those 6 types of simple machines and how they can even go together to form more complex mechanisms and machines, make sure you're on the lookout for those in everything you do every day. I think you'll be surprised at how many you find. Take care.